So today I'm going to show you how to change the text in an HTML element using just CSS. That's right. We're not using JavaScript. We're not changing the HTML. We're using strictly CSS. This sounds ridiculous, but this is the type of stuff that you have to do in the real world sometimes. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to go to Bootstrap's website here, if I can spell it right. And I'm using Bootstrap just because I know they have like 2 buttons on their web page here. Not that I'm just like a fan of Bootstrap. I think Bootstrap's okay. It's just, I don't know. Don't rely on it too much as a crutch, or it'll stunt your growth as far as learning CSS and JavaScript. But anyway, so this is a real scenario I ran into at work just last week, actually. There was a third-party script that was generating buttons just like this on a web page that we were working on, and the client wanted the buttons to say something different. They wanted the text on the button to say something different, and the third party was like, okay, that's fine, but your developer on your end has to do that. We're not changing the text. I don't know how they get away with this. I don't know how they get away with just saying they're not going to do it, but that's the situation I found myself in. That's what fell into my lap. And, I didn't have access to the third-party script, right, to change it myself. The page was a template page that was being rendered by React, so I couldn't use JavaScript to manipulate the DOM to change the text. So I ended up having to do this with CSS, which we're going to do with this one. So we're going to change this text here on Get Started to say, start here. Right? We'll keep it simple. Make it say something like start here. So the first thing we want to do is let's get the background color of this button here. And we want the background color, and it had like a hover on it too. So it had like a darker background. So we'll grab that too. So let's first copy that. And copy that, and then let's hit this hover this hover thing here so we can get this darker purple. And let me make sure that's in my clipboard. All right, cool. So there's the background color there. This is the darker hover background color. And this little guy here is just an app on Macs called Copy Clip, where you can keep multiple things in your clipboard like that. So that comes in handy for developers in situations just like this. So the first thing we need to do is make this, we need to hide this button here because we have to make our own button now. Let's take the hover off. And there's like 2 ways to hide things in CSS. The first way is display none, which, as you can see, we don't really want to use display none because it made the download button come over here. And we want the download button to stay where it's at. So what we really want to use is visibility hidden. And this is something that comes up on coding tests sometimes. Like, well, what's the difference between display none and visibility hidden? Well, that's the difference here. So if I uncheck display none and leave visibility hidden applied, you'll see that the space is available. So you can look at all the elements on a web page like they're just all in a long line. This long line here. And so just like if you were in line at a grocery store and you told the person behind you, hey, can you save my spot in line? I forgot the bread. I have to go grab some bread. And that person just said, nope, I'm not saving. I'm not going to save your place in line. That's what display none does. It just takes that spot away. But visibility hidden is like if you to say, hey, can you save my spot in line? I'll be right back. Visibility hidden saves that space. And as you can see, it makes the other elements respect this space around it. Display none has its place, just not in this scenario. I think it's safe to say that most developers will probably use display none way more than visibility hidden. I use display none way more. So now that it's hidden and we got the spot open, we want to set this element to a position of relative And I'll explain why we're doing that in a couple minutes. But now we need to basically create our button that's going to go right there. And to do that, we need to add this pseudo element after. And it's a to do a pseudo element, you have to use 2 colons. It will work with just 1, but in CSS 3, the standard for a pseudo element is to use 2 colons instead of 1. 1 colon would just be for a pseudo class. So we're using the pseudo element after, and we want to use the content property to put the text there. We have to use these quotation marks, and we're going to type start here in these quotations, and you see the little download button moved over, so something's happening there, but we still can't really see it here. And the reason for that is the pseudo element is still inheriting visibility hidden from this element here. So let's change that. Let's make this visibility visible, because that's the whole point. We want to see this. We want to see this button over here. So you see the text here, kind of. You might be able to see start here. Let's make it even more visible by adding our background color. So let's go up to the clipboard and grab it there, and our background color here. Let's paste it in, that purple, and it's starting to form. We're starting to see some progress here. Now, what we want to do with this is give it a position of absolute. So position absolute. So now you can kind of see that forming into something. Let's make this, let's line this thing up here. So position absolute, you use this basically when you want to take an element out of its natural position in the DOM, which this being a pseudo element, its natural position is after the button that's here. So now that we set it to position absolute, let's make it, give it a left of 0. And we want it to line up with the download button. So let's make the top of it 0, 2. So you can see with position absolute, we're able to just lay this on top of the other element that's here, but it's invisible. So the other element is still in the DOM. Like, it's still right here. It's just invisible right now. And we want to lay that over here. Now, if you look at it here, we're starting to see progress, but let's add some padding to this. And let's go with like 15 pixels. Yeah, 15 pixels is good. And let's give it a width of 100%. Great. So width is 100%, and let's round those corners, because originally the original button's corners were rounded just like the download button. So let's give it a border radius of like 5 pixels. All right, so we have our button here. We just need to add the hover here, because if we look at it now, the download button, you can hover over it and it changes, but this one, we don't have any hover effects. So let's inspect that again. And now what we want to do is, well, first let's grab the background color, which is there. And we want to add the pseudo class. I'm typing pseudo. The pseudo class hover. So we use that with 1 colon, and then the pseudo element after, because we're still dealing with the after element there. And you can do this in CSS. That looks weird, but you could chain these together like that. And we'll make the background that color there. So let's see here. Now this isn't like tablet mode or something, so I can't really get the hover effect on there, but as you can see now, there's our button there. And as you can see, this is clickable. We can click this and it'll go to the page it's supposed to go to because the original button is still behind it. So it's honoring that link that is going there. Now, remember, with that original button, we set that to position relative. And let me show you what happens if we didn't do that. See how that jumps out of that container there? So with position absolute, it will always be restricted to the nearest container that does not have a position static set to it. Now, the issue with that is that the default setting of HTML, of an HTML generated web page, is static. So if you don't change any of the elements on the page, all of them by default get the position static set to it. So position absolute is going to be restricted to the nearest parent element that is set to another position that's outside of static. It cannot be set to static, which is whatever this is here. So if we go up here in the DOM, so it's probably either container. It's probably not container because that's like a bootstrap class. It's probably this BD masthead. So if we look in this container, you can see this is position relative. So as you can see, position absolute needs to be told where the boundaries are. And we want the boundaries to be down here in this button here. So we'll put that back to position relative. So there you have it. We did it, right? We changed the text on a HTML element using just CSS. So we did a good job there, didn't we? If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell so you can get the notifications of more videos. I will be sharing more tutorials and CSS trickery just like we share here today. Thanks again for watching.